This is the TriSwimCoach podcast, where the most difficult leg of the triathlon becomes your friend, leaving your struggles and your competition behind you. TriSwimCoach.com, helping you to laugh at the water.
All right, welcome to TriSwimCoach. This is Kevin, and this is episode number 126. And today I'm excited to have Brian Bielanski on the show. Brian has spent his career as a journalist for nearly 30 years, covering some of the biggest news stories of our time. More recently, he is the founder of Team Kick Obesity, a project he has started to help bigger people participate in and enjoy endurance events. Brian, welcome to TriSwimCoach.
Thanks. I'm really excited to be on here and doing this with you today.
Yeah, this is awesome. And it goes right in line with some of the things that I've been talking about. And one of the courses that we actually have with TriSwimCoach, which is called the Fit Triathlete. And it kind of starts with psychology and it goes to nutrition and rest, and then finally workouts. So I'm really stoked that you're on here today. So I'm curious about your start. I kind of read your bio and very interesting. I wanted to go back to kind of the start, like when you were kind of just getting started with your career and sort of what led you to get into the field of journalism and, kind of what were you thinking at that time?
Well, my original plan was to be a musician. And of course, we know how well that turns out for most people. So at that point in time, I was interested in journalism. We did these current events tests in high school where the local newspaper would send out every week a current events test to each of the schools. And we'd take this test as one of our classes. And I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. And so I kind of got interested in the news at that point in time. And then when my world-class music career I found out that wasn't going to really do anything, I started looking around for what to do in college, and I stumbled upon the college radio station. And it's that college radio station that started me down the path that ended up with a 30-year career in news. So
wow, that's so interesting, because when I was in college, I actually did the same thing. I found out that there was a radio station, and I asked them, like, when could I have a show? Like, I wanted to do a show with a friend. And they said it was like 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. was the only opening they had. And I was like, I just couldn't possibly see doing that. So I never pursued it.
Well, my story was even more funny. I was driving around looking for a parking spot on campus, following a guy who had a bumper sticker from the college radio station on the back of his car. And it turned out that we both had parking spots next to each other. We both popped out of our cars. I said, "Do you work at the college radio station?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I said, "So how can I get involved?" He said, "Follow me." So I walked up to the college radio station. This is about a half hour before noon, and I'm just hanging out, and they had a noon newscast, a radio newscast they did every day, and I'm waiting for him, and he's getting ready to do the news, and then 15 minutes after the newscast started, he walks over to me and hands me some sports and says, "When the light goes on, read this." And put me down in front of a microphone, and I started reading the sports, and that was the beginning of the end.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you were kind of involved in the sports end of journalism then at the beginning.
Yeah, from a college standpoint, I never did it professionally because sports is my escape. And I figured, if I'm all, jazzed up after a day at work or a week at work and I'm doing sports, then when I go home on the weekends to just, relax and do something, I won't want to do sports or watch sports. So it just didn't make any sense for me. So I purposefully avoided sports my entire career for the most part until about 6 or 7 years ago when I started a motorsports website. But I never really did it professionally until probably 5 or 6 years ago.
Oh, wow. Okay. So yeah, that's interesting. That totally makes sense. You kind of keep it as more of a hobby than doing it as a career where you
exactly.
might end up getting burned out or something like that. Yeah. So how did it go from there? So you started in college, and then what was the next step?
Yeah, I started in college, and then I got involved with the local television station. I talked my way into there while I was still in college and learned how to do TV as a photographer. And then eventually I started producing newscasts, and I was still in college at the time. And then at one point I was offered a job to go to a bigger market, which is how you get promoted in television. You move from one smaller market to a bigger market to a bigger market. Mm-hmm. And I was still in college, and I asked my college advisor, what should I do? And she told me to quit school. And I'm like, okay. She said, you can always get the jobs aren't always there, but you can always come back to school. Yep. So I took the job, and from there, I did local TV throughout Wisconsin for 5 or 6 years, and ended up going to work for CNN in Atlanta for a while, and was a producer there. From there, I went to New York City and worked for CBS. And, I shouldn't skip this part. I met my wife at CNN in Atlanta.
Oh, wow.
She'll get mad at me if I skip that part. So then we went to New York. And long story short, eventually I ended up in Los Angeles, and now I produce the news for the CBS affiliate here in LA.
Okay, great. Yeah. And so that was over the course of like a couple decades then.
Oh, gosh, yeah. So yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. So, okay. So then I'm guessing that over that time, the exercise and eating habits kind of were put on like into the back seat.
Yes. That's the shortest.
Yeah,
the shortest part to a long story. But even as a kid, I was always the chubby kid. Mm-hmm. I was always the kid who wore husky clothes. If you have a larger kid, don't ever force them to wear husky clothes, by the way. It's not good for the psyche. Yeah. But I was always kind of like the kid who wanted to be great in sports, but was never good at sports because I was a little too heavy. I tried wrestling. I played basketball. I wasn't very good at all of them, but, I was always there to try. So I was never, terribly good at anything, but I was always had fun trying. So.
Yeah, that's really tough. I remember being like in the playground when we had to pick teams, and there'd always be two team captains. You had to pick teams, and then if you were not in the first half, it was like so embarrassing. And I mean, I can totally relate to this. I remember being picked down towards the bottom and just like, wow, I thought I was good at this stuff, but apparently not.
So then, working in television, when you're, working in the television station, it's a lot of sitting around, sitting at your computer, writing your news stories. Even when I was a field producer with CNN, you're on the road, you're eating out of convenience stores, you're doing fast food, you don't get very many breaks, you don't sleep very well. And so it's not very conducive to healthy eating at all, which is not a good excuse. And also, throughout the 90s and early 2000s, when I was doing a lot of that, there really wasn't an emphasis on healthy eating. Now I can go into a 7-Eleven and I can find hummus and pretzels and fresh vegetables and bananas. And there's a bunch of junk food there too, but there are actual choices of things that are somewhat healthy to eat, which certainly were never found in a gas station convenience store in 1995.
Yeah, that's right. I remember those days. Candy bars were the big thing. Potato chips maybe, and maybe you could get some Cheetos, something like that. It's like not a lot of health food there.
We used to call the breakfast of producers was a Coca-Cola and a Milky Way bar.
Wow. Yeah. That's just like setting yourself up for like your blood sugar spiking and producing tons of insulin. Yeah, it's just it's kind of a nightmare.
I can't even think about it anymore.
Well, that's good. That's a good sign. So then, okay, so you're kind of working this job that's taking up a lot of your time, and I'm guessing you're not really getting much exercise in at that time either.
No. I had some half-hearted attempts, at both exercise and diet. And like most everybody that I know who is fighting obesity, you have little successes followed by horrible unrecoveries. Mm-hmm. And, I'd lose 25 or 30 pounds and gain back 40 pounds. I'd lose 15 pounds and gain back 20 pounds. And eventually I found myself just a little under right around 350 pounds. And that's when I decided that I was tired of being tired walking up 6 steps trying to get to my apartment. So
that was your kind of your wake up call, like that you're just kind of sick of dealing with it?
Yeah, I have one flight of stairs to get from our parking lot to the elevator that gets me up the 3 more floors to my apartment. And one day I'm walking up this 6 steps, and I got to the top, and I am sucking air like I just ran a marathon. Yeah. And I was like, I've got to find something to do here. And that's when I decided to go and do some research on weight loss surgeries and all that kind of stuff. And we can certainly talk about that also if you want.
Yeah. So I guess just at this point, what was your next step? Like, did you go right into looking at surgeries, or did you try some other things first? Or
No, at that point, I had realized that I had done plenty of attempts at doing it the old-fashioned way, which everyone says, you ought to do it the old-fashioned way. I'm like, well, you know what? It's not working, so let's try something else. Mm-hmm. And we were just talking about it last night. 3 years ago, this past Monday, was when I had my bariatric surgery. So almost just a little more than 3 years ago.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so the traditional methods of people that say, it's easy, you just eat less and move more, right?
Right.
That one didn't really work.
Well, I mean, and it does work for some, and I just didn't have the personal fortitude to do all of that. And I needed some shock to my system. Mm-hmm. And, I had what I consider really good success, not great success. I lost about 100 pounds real quickly, and then I've since gained back 30 or 40, but I'm still 60 pounds lighter than I was when I started. So, my knees are 60 pounds left, my ankles are 60 pounds less, that I'm carrying around every day. And I walk up that 6 steps when I have to, and I'm not sucking wind anymore. So, but once I started to gain the weight back, I realized that I'm not doing the exercise that I need to do. Just because you have the surgery, doesn't mean that, you have to stop doing the right things. And the good part about the surgery is it teaches you from an eating standpoint really what you need to do, because you can't eat the way you used to for a certain amount of time. And what a lot of people don't understand about the surgery before they get it is the effects of the surgery. With mine in particular, I had the gastric sleeve. The effects don't last forever. Mm-hmm. They last for really strong for about a year. And then over the course of the next year or two, all of the benefits of the surgery slowly wear off. And the hope is that in that year or 18 months, you've trained your mind and your body to do the right things and to eat the right things, so that when the effects of the surgery begin to wane, you don't go right back to where you started. Some have really good success with that. Others struggle with it a little bit. I think I've kind of been a little bit in the middle ground.
Yeah. And it sounds like, because one of the things that I talk about with the Fit Triathlete is kind of changing your taste buds. Like if you're used to eating a really high carb diet, then going to the next level, which would be, cutting out some of the carbs and sugars and all that, is kind of it's a difficult step for a lot of people. But once you can kind of get over that threshold or that hump, it becomes easier, and you start to crave different kinds of foods.
Right.
Is that what happened with you as well?
It did. But the one thing that you don't get from any of the surgeries is liquid calories. You can always have a milkshake, and that'll be completely irrelevant to the surgery that you had. That the surgery doesn't stop you from drinking anything. So, and there are so many places to get liquid calories from. Yeah. And so that was always and even to this day is somewhat my issue. But I haven't had a soda since 3 weeks before the surgery, which was a big thing. I used to drink 8 cans of Coke a day.
Wow. Yeah.
And when you work overnights, which is what I do now, and I have at various times throughout my career, you just eat to stay awake.
Right.
And you drink to stay awake. Now I drink black coffee. So that's better than Coke. Or I'll put I'll put like one hot cocoa packet in, and then have that last me for the whole 8 hours. And I just keep pouring coffee into it, which is still a heck of a lot. That's 120 calories over the course of 8 hours, when I was drinking 4 or 5 times 250 calories a can over that 8 hours.
Yeah.
So I'm not as good as I could be, but I'm still about 80% better than I was. You know what I mean?
Right. And that's the important thing. And that's the thing I think I like to get across, is that you don't look at the whole entire big picture when you're going on a journey like you're doing. Like it's more about these small victories, small wins, and looking at where you've come from and going, okay, I can celebrate that. Like that's awesome. Like 80% of the way is much, much better. And, even the little tiny things, like you go from 8 to 4 a day or something. It's like, wow, okay, there's cut in half.
Right. So. And even my portion control is so much better now. I don't have as much portion control that's forced by the surgery. Mm-hmm. It used to be I'd be able to eat a cup and a half of food, and then I would I couldn't put another morsel in my stomach. Yeah. Now I can eat 3 times that, But 3 cups of food is still probably a third of what I was eating before the surgery. So again, it's not the perfect victory, but it's a pretty darn good victory.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. So now at this point, do you have some goals that I know we'll talk about the triathlon stuff, but as far as your own weight or your fitness levels, health levels, things like that, do you have goals that you are keeping?
Well, a couple of my goals I've achieved, and I hope to continue. When I had the surgery, I was on diabetes medications, haven't had that in 3 years. Before the surgery, I was on high blood pressure medication, haven't had that in 3 years. So I am 100% pharmaceutical free.
Wow.
Other than the head cold medicine I'm taking right now. But I don't take any of those maintenance drugs for the typical things that a guy who's just a tick under 300 pounds would take. So that's one goal. It was achieved with the surgery, and I haven't had to go back. So that's one thing. I had a weight loss goal of being anywhere with a 1 as the first number of my weight. So I would have been happy at 199. I was kind of going for 180 because then I could fluctuate 5 or 10 pounds in either direction and not have to worry about it. Right now, I'm just a couple of pounds under 300. So I would still like to have that be my goal, but I'm not going to go have another surgery. And some people do have a secondary surgery once the first one wears off. I would really like to avoid doing that. So my goal is now to continue eating as well as I can, and then through the endurance sports, which is why I started TKO, through the endurance sports, get myself into a place where I can start peeling off at least some of that weight. If I don't get down under 200, it's fine, but that would be something I'd really like to do.
Yeah, for sure. And let's talk about Team Kick Obesity. Well, first of all, actually, before we go there, I was curious about, because I emphasize a lot of the psychology aspects and the mindset when it comes to health, just not even like competing or any of that, but just health in general. There's so much psychology involved. And I'm curious how your psychology has changed. I'm sure it has over the years now.
Well, here was my psychology for years. I've always been active. I've always, been the guy who played on the softball team. I've been the guy who would play golf, a dozen times a year and walk the golf course. I would, do all that kind of recreational sports stuff that most guys do. And my theory was, well, my weight's not stopping me from doing any of this, so I'm fine. I didn't mean I was good at any of it, but, I could go out, I could do it, and I could go out and have a couple of, beers with the guys afterwards, and everything was fine. I got to a point in time where I couldn't do that anymore. And that was the first kind of thing that made me realize I'm in trouble. And then you have kids, and there's this thought about wanting to be around long enough to do all the things and see their milestones. So that was weighing on me. So that was part of my psychology. And then it came to the point in time where after several attempts, through weight loss drugs, diets, half-hearted attempts at different exercise programs, I just realized that I wasn't going to be able to do it by myself.
Yeah, awesome. And then, so I'm guessing that at some point in the last couple of years, you sort of got more active and started doing some workout. Is that right?
Right. So right after the weight loss surgery, obviously they want you to get moving right away.
Yeah.
And they want exercise to be part of the system of the surgery. It's the surgery alone doesn't do it for anybody. So they emphasize right away, get out, get moving. Walking is what they recommend. So immediately following the surgery, I signed up to do the 39-mile Avon Cancer Walk. And that was a little less than a year after my surgery. So, and that walk, if your folks don't know about it or your listeners don't know about it, is it's a marathon on the first day and then a half marathon on the second day.
Wow, that's a lot.
It is, especially if you're, 250 pounds. And so I trained, I did all of the work I was supposed to do. I did an 18-mile walk in one of my training walks about a month before the walk. So I was felt physically more than well enough to do it. And but I didn't understand, and I had good shoes. I went out and bought the proper shoes, but I didn't understand how much of a beating my feet were going to take. So at the end of the first day, my feet were a mess. I should have probably never gone out for the second day, but I'm like, I signed up to do this, and I don't like to quit on anything. So I went and did the extra 13.1 miles, or at least most of them. I stopped at the medical tent for a while for them to look at my feet, which was a big mistake because all they did was take off my shoes and socks and said, "Yep, your feet are messed up. There's not much we can do for you.
Yeah.
Keep on going or stop." And they didn't, they tell me you're not going to do any permanent damage. You're just going to be in pain for the next 9 miles. And the problem that happened with that was the hour I took waiting for them to tell me there was nothing they could do for me put me far enough behind where they made me get on the sag wagon and get caught up with the group, which was about maybe 2 miles. So I came short of the 39 miles by 2 miles, which really ticked me off because they didn't do anything for me. So, but I would have finished the full 39 had that not happened.
Yeah.
So I got like 37 and a half. But the problem is that my feet were so bad that I basically stopped working out for 3 months.
Oh, yeah.
I lost a couple of toenails. I was really in bad shape. And that just lost all of my momentum.
Yeah.
And one of the things for me is I love to work out, but I don't have any motivation to work out unless I have circled an event on the calendar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that idea because I'm the same way. It's like I'll still go to the gym, I'll still maintain fitness, but there's nothing like an event that's going to kick me into gear and go to that next level.
Right. So I started Team Kick Obesity back before I did this 39 miles, and then I pretty much put it to sleep because I stopped working out. And I'm like, I can't promote this if I'm not doing the work myself. And then 2 months ago, I decided this has got to get going again. I want to stop my reverse trend on my weight loss. And I circled the triathlon in March, and everything's been rolling pretty well since. So
that's March of next year?
Yes, March 9th, 108 days from today, but who's counting?
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about Team Kick Obesity. What is it about? And how did you end up starting this group?
Well, I'm a journalist and I've done lots of radio. So I have a couple things that most people don't have. I have contacts and the ability to talk people into talking to me. So I figured I have the ability to get answers for people like me to help them get motivated to get out and do things. And you see all these like fitness coaches and videos, and they're all a bunch of skinny people who are trying to tell the big people how to do what it is they've got to do.
Right.
And I figured, no one's calling me skinny, and I'm walking the walk that millions of people need to walk or should walk or may want to walk and are either too scared to start or don't know how to. So I figured I'm going to use my journey as the stepping off point to help a bunch of other people do the exact same thing. And so the best ways to do what I think we need to do from an exercise standpoint are through the endurance sports of running or walking, riding, and swimming. Everybody, no matter what size you are, can find something of those three to make you happy. Mm-hmm. And I'm just dumb enough to try to do all three. But so that was kind of the stepping off point, and that's why I decided to start the program. And it's in its infancy, and I've got some, friends and family who are following. I'm trying to grow it, which is why I asked to be on a podcast with you, because I'm hoping that, your friends and followers will find and tell their friends about what I'm trying to do. And hopefully we can all start this and grow it into something huge.
Yeah, I mean, I love the project, and that's why I was excited when I got your email. And yeah, I think there's so much that we can do. And hopefully, I'm sure there's lots of people listening to this show that are going to get motivated enough to kind of follow you and join. Is it a group? Do you have like group events, or how does it work?
Well, so it's starting out as a Facebook group.
Okay.
I'm keeping it as a closed group so people can be open and honest and not be afraid of the feedback they're going to get. It'll be moderated. So if someone does get a negative, I'll kick them off because we're not going to be negative. This is all about being positive. But it's also, I'm finalizing a website, which will be up, and it's going to be podcasts and blog posts and questions and answers. And if I don't have the answers because of my background as being a journalist, I can pick up the phone and get those answers. And that's how I'm going to run it. And then eventually I'm hoping that we can have people who are, competing in events or even walking in events wearing the Team Kick Obesity gear and, getting the word out there so that we can just become a bunch of crazy people trying to get healthy.
That's awesome. So there's going to be, I think, people that are listening to this that are maybe just starting out. Either they're starting out on their weight loss journey, or they're maybe like thinking about doing a triathlon, or, maybe they've done a couple of tries and they're interested in this. What would you tell them? Like, what's your advice on getting off the block? Just
do it. Just sign up for something. That's usually the thing is, we can talk about wanting to do it. And I mean, I've watched the Ironman on TV 25 times and said, God, I would love to have the cojones to just sign up for it, and oh no, I can't do that. I'm a big guy or whatever the case. But then if you watch deep enough into the show, you get all those inspirational stories about the guy who's pushing his son in the wheelchair, or, the guy who's blind or a wheelchair athlete. I'm like, if I've got no excuse, So if all of these folks can do it, I can certainly complete a mini try.
Right.
And that's the first step is just to get out and circle a 5K walk.
Right.
And sign up for that, or a 5K run, or join a master's swim team, there's 100 different ways to do it, but it's just deciding that today's the day I'm going to put my money out there, sign up, and then do it. And don't worry about what position you're going to finish. My personal goal is I've heard this a couple of weeks ago, complete, don't compete. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not good at not competing, but I'm certainly going to complete. And my only goal is, besides completing, is to not finish last in the Clydesdale group and to maybe not finish last in my age group.
Yeah.
And that's fine, and even if I do finish last, as long as I finish, that's really my only goal.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I think that's such a great thing to keep in mind is, and you were saying like sign up for a race. Like, it's not that hard. Like, anyone can fill out a form and send in a check or credit card or whatever for a race. So that part is pretty easy, but it is a big step. I mean, even though it sounds like, okay, well, that takes 10 minutes, it's that first step that is really big. And I always talk about this whole thing of like, if you want to work out in the morning, get your shoes out and have them ready to go, and wake up. And the first thing you do is put your shoes on, your workout shoes. And then maybe that's all you do. Maybe that's all your only goal is to put those shoes on. But most likely, if you do that, you're going to get out the door. Right. And most likely, if you get out the door, you're going to do some sort of exercise. And that's way more important than thinking like, oh, I have to do 3 miles today. Like, I have to do 3 miles. It's like, no, you just need to get out the door. That's it.
Well, and the other thing I would tell people is, and this is what I've learned in the last, I really started my triathlon training about 4 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. And the first day is, I don't want to say it's going to suck because that will scare people away, but it's going to suck. But the second day is remarkably better than the first day. I figured, because I have a friend of mine who runs marathons that I work with, and she just did Boston. And after the first day I'm doing a run walk program. So basically I ran for a minute, walked for 4 minutes, and I did this over and over again until I got to the 3 miles end of the loop that I was on. And I was like, there's no way in my mind I'm ever going to be able to do a minute and a half of running and then the 3.5. But so I talked to my friend and I said, how long does it take before you see improvement, that you feel like you've made progress? And she goes, you're not going to believe this, but it'll be within 10 runs. Mm-hmm. And the crazy part was the first time I went to a minute and a half of running with only 3.5 minutes of walking, I could tell the improvement right there. And that was only on my third run.
Yeah.
So while it's going to be scary and it's not going to be necessarily fun the first time, I would tell people that the second time's a little better, the third time's a better yet, and it snowballs into that. And I was shocked because the first time I did the run walk, it would take me, by the end of my walking, I was still not back to breathing normally.
Mm-hmm.
On my third work, I had to jump to 1.5 minutes and then 3.5 minutes of walking. And I was back to normal breathing before I was running again. And that was in 3 workouts.
Wow. That's great. Yeah.
So now I'm up to 2.5 minutes of running and 2.5 minutes of walking. And I'm not quite back to regular breathing, but I'm also running a lot longer and walking a lot less.
Yeah.
And that's fine. But the progress was really remarkable from the running standpoint. The swimming standpoint, which is why I wanted to talk to you, has been a little more difficult for me. And hopefully we can get to that before we get done here.
Yeah, that's a great segue into what I was going to ask you next is, what do you think about swimming and what's your challenges been?
So I'm fortunate because in Southern California, and I think you're in San Diego, right?
Yeah.
So we've got lots of opportunities to swim all year round. And so I found a pool. I first was going to swim at the Rose Bowl, which is a beautiful facility, but a little expensive. Mm-hmm. But I found another year-round pool here that I can swim at, and it's got 25-yard lengths and all of that. So the first time I got in the pool, and I swam a lot as a kid. I was at some point a certified lifeguard, never worked as a lifeguard. The only reason I took the certification class because I was 14 and I was in love with the instructor who was a college girl.
Yeah, that's a good reason.
So it gave me one more summer of going to swim lessons. But no, all kidding aside. So I swim. I thought I swam pretty well. I know how to do most of the strokes. Although I can't butterfly to save my life. But I can backstroke, I can side stroke, I can breaststroke, I can freestyle. So I thought the swimming would be something that, I would still have to work at, but I didn't think it was going to be a big deal. So the first time I got in the pool 3 weeks ago, I got about halfway through my first 25 yards and I was completely gassed. Mm-hmm. I ended up having to breaststroke to the end of that wall. And then I was doing a combination of freestyle breaststroke, just because I was not doing something right. And I'm a little better now. I'm getting to at least one full length before I have to take a breather. But it's taking a lot longer than I expected it would. And part of it is because my butt sinks, which I've heard you talk about being very common for people who don't swim a lot. Yep. And I haven't figured out how to fix that just yet.
Yeah, that's a tough one. That's not an overnight thing. And I think we've done like 2 videos on that and a couple podcasts. And it's like, it's a struggle for a lot of people that are starting out.
Well, and my question is, if it's a struggle for people who aren't big, it strikes me that it's probably even harder for people who are. I was hoping maybe you might have some other suggestions, for folks who are more rotund than the average triathlete.
It's funny because people that have really low body fat actually tend to sink. So it actually is in that way, in that part of swimming, it's a disadvantage to have low body fat. And so you'll see these hardcore runners, like the marathon runners and the people that are just crazy skinny. You'll see them sink in freestyle. And so, but that's not to say that that's something you can't get over. It takes a lot of practice.
Sure.
And so I wouldn't say that you have a disadvantage. I would say that it's kind of, it's just one of those things. Some people have sink more than others. It really depends on a lot of factors, but there's a couple of things that you can do. One is that the first thing I start with is head position. So if you're looking forward, then your body is going to that's when your hips are going to sink. So if you try kicking just with your hands at your sides, so just kick with your hands at your sides, and you go to take a breath, like lift your head up to take a breath, you'll notice right away you'll just start sinking. Your hips will just sink. And so that's a good drill just to practice to get that feeling of like, okay, then you put your head back down and you look straight down at the bottom of the pool, and then your hips come back up to the surface. So that's a starting point. And then just working on the balance drills. Like we have in our course, we teach the different balance drills, and that helps you to get balanced on your sides so that when you're swimming, because we're not natural. No human is natural in the water. So we have to make ourselves more balanced in the water. So we do that with these kicking drills where you're actually just kicking on your side. And that actually helps a lot with getting you up to the surface. And then, and then it's just a lot of practice. It's not going to be something that changes, in a week or two. It's more like over the course of time, you'll start getting a little bit better and a little bit better. And then pretty soon one day you'll go, wow, I actually don't sink that much, but you might still sink a little bit. Like people that have been swimming for years even still sink a little bit, but it gets better over time.
Well, and the cool part for me is I just find that I love my time in the pool. I'm real frustrated by it right now.
Yeah.
But I try to go right after work. And I work overnights. I don't know if we talked about that. But I work until 7 a.m. on most days. So I try to go right to the pool and swim for what is now probably about 25 or 30 minutes if I can. Mm-hmm. And I just feel awesome when I got out of the pool.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I'm also ready to go right to bed.
Yeah.
So I sleep better, which is also a good benefit because when you sleep during the day, it stinks. But so I really find that if I could, I'd try to swim, 4 or 5 days a week if I had the time.
Right.
I really enjoy it, but I want to get to the point where I'm not so frustrated by it.
Yeah. I think you're saying exactly what a lot of people are thinking. It's like, it's great that you enjoy it, but then getting to over that threshold where it becomes at the point where you're actually on the surface of the water, you're actually flowing and not struggling and, kind of putting a lot of energy or as much energy into it. So that's a great feeling.
And the first try that I'm doing, it's only a 150 meter swim.
Awesome.
So, I can breaststroke that if I have to.
Right.
But my hope is that by March 9th, I can freestyle the 150 meters. That's my goal right now without having to take a break, during that time. It won't be fast. I don't care about the speed.
Right.
I just want to be able to do the 150 meters without having to take a break at the end of each length. And I think I can get to there.
Yeah, I know you can. This is, I'm happy to help you however we can. We don't live like right next door, but just whatever I can do to help with your initial phases of this, I definitely think you can get there. So.
Oh, that'd be fantastic. That'd be great.
Yeah. So. Cool. So, I think that's about all I had. So as far as Team Kick Obesity, how can somebody that's interested join or get a hold of you or find out more?
So there's a couple of things. There's 2 Facebook groups. There's a Facebook page, which anybody can join. And that's what I've been doing most of that. I've got a bunch of blog posts there. And basically, I'm just telling my story at this point of each of my workouts and the struggles, the successes, and trying to motivate people through that. And then I've also just started up yesterday, actually, and there's nobody on it yet, a closed group, which will be not by invitation only. I will let people in with just a couple of quick questions. But the goal of the closed group is to be a place where people can be completely open and honest and not have to worry about the criticisms that come from an open Facebook group. And I will moderate that. Eventually, I'll have a couple of other moderators. And, the number one rule on the rules is don't be an a-hole. So as long as everybody works with that, we'll be fine. But I just wanted it to be a place where people can go because, it's uncomfortable for people. A lot of the reasons that people are big is because they're scared of doing the things. They're scared of going to a gym and all that kind of stuff. I was that person, or at least I understand it. And so I want to give people a place where they can go and feel safe. So that's the reason for the closed group. There's a website that we'll be starting up very quickly, and I need a couple of more podcasts, and I'll put my podcasts up on iTunes. But so the Team Kick Obesity, you can go to Facebook, just look it up, it comes right up, and then you can ask to join either group, and then soon the website will be there, and the website will be teamkickobesity.com.
Cool.
Or is it .org? I think it's .org.
Oh, .org. Okay, cool. Yeah, we'll put this all in the show notes, and it looks like the Facebook group is just facebook.com/Team Kick Obesity.
Correct.
So if anybody wants to find that, and we'll have links to everything in the show. And I'm sure this show will probably come out in about a week or so. So by the time, you'll probably have this site up probably a couple weeks after that. So I'm sure a lot of people will be hearing this when your site is live. So that'll be awesome.
Great.
Cool.
So I think you've answered all of my questions, and I guess the only other question I would have before I leave, or we close this out is, the frustration factor with the swim. Is this something that will take years to master? Is this something that someone can become proficient in a couple of months? I don't want to be perfect and fast, but I just want to be proficient. You know what I mean?
It's a great question. It really, of course I'm going to answer it a little bit vaguely, but it really depends. But I can give you kind of a range. So if you're starting from scratch, like you've never swum a lap in your life, then it's going to take at least a few months to get to that point where you're like, okay, I can do an open water swim of 300 meters or something like that. But if you have some kind of swimming background, which it sounds like you do, like you've done some swimming in the past and you're sort of having to just relearn everything and kind of learn it a little bit differently, then
right.
We have, I've always said, I used to have this card that I would hand out, swim faster in 6 weeks. So I really believe that 6 weeks is enough time. If you're doing the right drills and you're getting in consistently, you can get there in 6 weeks. But then it's always a work in progress for the next, until you actually race. So I would say that if you stick with the plan and do the drills and all that, you'll see some pretty good improvements there, in a month and a half. And then to get faster, so that's the kind of the first phase is like about 6 weeks of you're working on almost purely technique. Like you're not really doing a lot of full stroke swimming. And then you switch into doing a little more full stroke swimming, a little bit less on the drills. And then, by the time, maybe a couple months later, you're doing sort of half and half. And then you sort of dial down the drills and you do more swimming to improve your endurance and be ready for your race.
Right. Okay. Well, I just have to keep at it and not give up, and it'll come. I know it will. I mean, I've seen so many stories of people who have figured this out. So I know that I can do it. It's just, I didn't think this was going to be the most frustrating part. I thought running was going to be my biggest frustration. And it's turned out that it's still frustrating, but it's like when you're running, everyone knows how to run. They just might not be good at it or be able to do it for a long period of time. If you can't ride a bike, you fall off. So you get instant results with that. But the swimming is much more technical and technique oriented. Yep. And I just didn't think about that as being a person who swam his whole life, but never really swam anything competitively. I just figured I can do this. I know how to swim, and it's not that easy.
Yeah. As it turns out, it really takes a little more because there's so much technique involved compared to running and biking that it definitely takes some time. So yeah. Well, great, Brian. I really enjoyed chatting with you, and congratulations on all the success you've had so far. And I'm sure that it's just going to continue. So, all the best, and thanks for taking your time to come on.
Oh, well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thanks for listening to another episode covering swimming and triathlon mastery. To get your free online swim clinic, just go to TriSwimLessons.com. Give us your name and email, and we'll have session number 1 off to you right away. Begin your process of befriending the swim and laughing at the water now.